the professor.
And Mitch.
And today we've got G-Money NFT on the show. But before we start talking to G-Money, let's grab that crypto news from Paul, the crypto curator, aka Mitch.
So today, the big news of the day is CNBC's Jim Cramer says he invested $500,000 in Bitcoin after gold let him down. Altcoin Daily is convinced that we are just getting started. Pomp talks with Visser about allocating billions of dollars today. Sylvain says governments can ban Bitcoin, but won't stop adoption by the people. Won't stop adoption by the people.
Won't stop adoption. Can't stop.
Right.
So what you're saying is we need the crypto gent on live for our news segments. Where is the gent?
Dive down the rabbit hole and follow the crypto curator, Paul. Paul is amazing. He puts a crypto news segment every day on the Crypto Campfire Telegram. So if you guys aren't on the Crypto Campfire Telegram, look us up, find it, get there, and see his news segments on a daily basis. The guy's, oh my God, so deep into news. So it's awesome.
Deep into news. All right. Yeah. We got to get the crypto jet back on because I missed that. But we've got 4 more recordings of news coming in. So our regular episodes will still have the gent, but we got to work him into the live streams. Just so hard with the time zone. But more importantly, G-Money, what's up, man? Welcome to the show. How's it going?
What's up, guys? Excited. Ooh.
Uh-oh. He just had it. Now he lost it.
You lost it. Where'd you go?
I literally just lost it. Working so well.
Pretty soon, G-Money will become an AR monkey.
Right?
But with time. We'll give it time. Crypto punks. All right. So while you're struggling with that, do you want to go ahead and talk at the same time? Can you multitask? I can't. So if you can't, we'll just talk for you. But
hold on 1 second.
All right, Mitch, how was your day?
My day was great. I worked all day, did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of mud work. My hands are killing me, but you know what? I'm living, man. I'm definitely living, and I am just excited to be in this crypto space on a daily basis. You know, I got my dad into crypto in December, actually in January. So that's been exciting for him to see the gains that he's had and in such a short period of time. You know, the guy's used to trading stocks and never seen anything like crypto before. And he's like, hey, you think we should sell? We should probably sell something. I'm like, no. Don't sell anything. No. Hold on.
The weekends yet?
Oh yeah. Actually, you know, I've calmed him down. I've got his nerves about as solid as they can get right now. You know, his first pullback, he like freaked out and he starts texting me all this stuff. And I'm like, I called him on the phone. I said, listen, if you keep this shit up on the next pullback, I'm going to block you. My own father. I am going to block you. And I'm not going to listen to this shit because you're stressing me out.
Oh, goddamn it.
Just relax. Don't look at it for 6 months and we'll be fine.
You should just get him into NFTs. Tell him if you're worried about it, if the market's going down, don't sell. Just go buy NFTs with it and then you'll be good.
But here's the transparency, right? NFTs require somebody that knows NFTs, which is my partner in crime, but he's like buried in NFTs and he's busier than a fucking one-legged man at an ass kicking contest. So I can't even get him to help me make an NFT, let alone get my dad into NFTs. Let's just be real here. Right?
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. Hell no. I'm not.
All right. I don't know. I can't figure this out for the light.
It
was literally working perfectly.
No.
Until we went live. All right.
The universe will allow it to happen. It'll just start working magically. I can see.
That's right.
Feel it. All right. So instead of AR monkeys, which are not working at the time, let's step back in time a little bit and talk about how you found crypto in the first place. Not NFTs, but crypto in general. How did that happen? What got you sucked in?
Okay. So what got me sucked in? So I originally heard about Bitcoin, I think back in like 2010, you know, and I remember seeing it at $27. It was breaking out. And I was like, I'm going to wait for the pullback. And it never pulled back. And it went straight to 1,000. And then like once it went back to like 200, I was like, oh, this is tulips and I'm done. And I didn't look at it again for years until 2017 in the, it was like around April or May of 2017. And it was getting above $1,000. I was like, all right, like this could be real. You know, I come from a traditional finance background. So I trade equities, been trading equities for like close to 20 years at this point. And when Bitcoin was breaking out, I was like, all right, like let me actually do some work on this. I found Ethereum and I caught like the mid to late stage cycle of the ICO boom of 2017. And then in early 2018, I sold my best Bitcoin sale was at 16,900. And then 10 seconds later, I was like, oh man, that was a terrible sale. And then 30 seconds later, I was like, oh man, that was a great sale. And at that point in Q1 of 2018, I was like, blockchain tech is great, but it's a little premature, right? Like I was using the .com bubble as my parallel. And like to me, it was like, all right, like it's going to take 5 to 7 years before we build out the tech, So I was like, I'll come back, when the tech gets built and the cool shit's being made. And so it actually happened way faster than I thought. A couple projects that I invested in had some tokens unlocking, and they're like, hey, where do we send the tokens to? And that was in I'd say like early summer last year. And then when that happened, I literally was like, I looked and I was like, wow, like people actually built a lot of cool shit really quickly. And I fell down the DeFi rabbit hole over the summer. And, I heard about NFTs a little bit over the summer. I think I heard about punks, and I did hear about punks, but like I didn't pay attention to them because I was, like DeFi was just so much, was what was hot. And so once that cooled down in September is when I really started going down the NFT rabbit hole. And that's how I ended up kind of here.
It all happens really fast, right? It's like you jumped on a slide and found yourself at the bottom about 30 seconds later, even though it's been 4 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think part of it was because, so like last cycle, I remember my first buys of Bitcoin and Ethereum were like super small because again, like I just didn't understand it, right? So it's a new market. You don't want to risk that much. So you're just trying to understand it. And this time when, I saw that like everything was popping off, like I was way more comfortable putting a larger percentage of my net worth in there because I understood the technology, right? As opposed to last cycle in 2017, my first investment, I'm like, well, I could lose it all. So like you have to size accordingly, right? And so now like that I understood it better, I understood what the risks were better.
It's a total different mentality, isn't it, now compared to when it was like in 2017?
Oh yeah, you mean like the coins or?
Well, the coins, and not so much the coins, but like our mentality, right? As people in crypto, I got in 2018 and rode a bear market for almost 2.5, 3 years. And, the mentality now, it's like pullbacks don't affect me, right? When something pulls back 20%, I'm like, woohoo, I get another buying opportunity. I don't look at it as, oh my God, I just lost money. And people coming into the market, they're buying cryptocurrency and they're seeing it, from when they bought it because they've FOMO'd in, and now they're seeing a pullback and they're freaking out because they're like, oh my God, my $1,000 just turned into 700. What am I doing? Right. And so the mindset, as we get smarter, as we learn more about cryptocurrency, as we see how the market fluctuates, right, and we know the real value behind it, we don't fret as much over pullbacks, and we tend to take advantage of spikes when it happens. So,
well, yeah, to your point, right? Like I was actually having this conversation today where I was talking to this person and they were interested in possibly, purchasing their first allocation of Bitcoin. And, I was telling them, I'm like, today, I feel like Bitcoin is a safer buy today than it was a year ago from today. And it was 10 times lower.
For sure.
It was literally, $4,000 or $5,000 literally a year ago today. And I think it's a much safer long at these levels, right? Just because I think the meme of sound money, you finally have companies that are putting this on their treasury, yes, on the balance sheet, right? Like I think the interesting parallel between this cycle and last cycle is that last cycle, if you talked about Bitcoin, you had career risk, right? Like you had the risk of being fired if you said something like, let's buy Bitcoin. Now, I think we're probably maybe I'd say 3 months away from career risk of not buying Bitcoin, right? Where it's like, if you're a company treasurer, or the CFO, and you're not sitting there being like, hey, we at least need to consider, 5% of our treasury in Bitcoin, you might be fired, right? Because you might miss out. Because it's one of those things, it's like the mob mentality, right? Like, and you see this with like fund managers in financial markets where, if it's okay to lose money as long as everybody else loses money, right? Because your benchmark performed just as poorly as you did. So I think you're probably going to start seeing the same kind of herd mentality happen with Bitcoin.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And the more adoption we see, the more, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, God, what other ones? There's so many to even think about,
right. All of them, they're coming.
Right. And you got JP Morgan Chase, you got all these banks. Banks are now allowed in the United States to be custodians of cryptocurrency. Not really my favorite thing in the world, but you know what? It's that one step closer to mass adoption. It's giving it in the hands of people that are afraid of applications. That trust, blindly trust the banks, which I don't agree with. But nevertheless, there's always going to be that select few that believe in banks and believe in the traditional system. So by the traditional system actually allowing banks to hold your Bitcoin and hold your cryptocurrency, I think that's a big positive move towards adoption. So yeah, this is, the sky's the limit, man. I mean, it's going to be a crazy summer. That's all I got to say. This is going to be an insane summer. We are going to see parabolic values, just unbelievable.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, right?
That's right. I mean,
let's talk about the banks thing a little bit here, because we talk a lot about custodial and non-custodial wallets. Yes. But what about when your custodial wallet is a fucking traditional bank? I mean, that's going to happen. And obviously, it's going to be relatively safe for the most part. Banks are safe, but have, thousands and thousands of caveats. But is that something that you think you could either of you could ever see yourself utilizing?
Not like if I did it, it would only be, I think, for certain situations, right? Like maybe, I mean, I can't even, maybe buying a house or something, if you needed an intermediary for that. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, like, I mean, I think right now, like to your point that as long as you have people, even banks embracing this, at some point when the user experience of Web3 is going to be equal to the way it is, right? Like if my experience of self-custody was the same exact experience as having a custodian, then I will probably choose self-custody, right? Because I will have ownership, total ownership over my assets, right? So I think that and you're going to see that across the board in probably every Web3 app, right? Where, right now, the Facebook user experience is way better than whatever the Web3 experience is right now. Twitter is better than like BitClout right now, right? But as, let's say, a BitClout or a decentralized dApp gains more in prominence, you're going to see more and more people move over, because people value their privacy. And, it's literally as an American, that's what America was founded on, right? Like my privacy and my protection of my property and goods, right?
Okay, so BitClout's something that I want to touch on, just because I keep seeing it pop up all over Twitter for the past week. Everybody's excited about their BitClout thing. And half of what I see is BitClout's a scam. Half of what I see is BitClout's really cool and exciting. From my perspective, I looked into it to try to see, put all the bullshit aside, because all the scam claims, it seems to be people just complaining about the fact that they pre-allocated accounts, pre-created accounts. I haven't seen any scam claims that actually had any legitimacy. But there was enough of them that it, at least caused me to take a step back and look. And I just about pulled the trigger to set up an account. I haven't yet, but I've got the quote unquote password thing, and I think I'm probably going to end up setting it up. So my question is, since you've obviously heard of it, what do you think on it? What's your opinion on it?
So I don't think it's a scam because of the list of VCs that have invested. If it's a scam, they scam the smartest people in crypto. So,
yeah, like the Winklevoss, I think we're on the list,
like Naval, there's it's like a who's who of crypto VCs, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, I don't think these guys have more to lose, obviously, by scamming a couple $100 million than they do maintaining their name. So I'm not really concerned about that. Like, to your point, is I think the reason why people were calling it a scam is probably because there was a really early private round that people got in on early. I personally think that this is going to be very interesting to watch, right? Because this reminds me a lot of a Black Mirror episode with almost like, so it was the one where like you had like your social standing and your points going up and down and people were ranking you and stuff like that, because like you're literally like a stock as an account, right? So it's like, oh, like, yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how people gamify it, right? And like me as a person that has a following on Twitter, I'm like, all right, like how can I like play with this a little bit, right? Because I think you're going to see a lot of interesting things of people, and I mean, it's either going to be like amazing and awesome, or it's going to be like something that like goes down burning in flames. That it's like, wow, that was really detrimental to society as a whole. But I think it's kind of interesting because you're really, I mean, all it is, if you're buying create these creator coins, is like you're buying futures in this persona, right?
Right.
So it's like if you think this person is going to gain in prominence or have some sort of following, you want to buy them early, obviously, and vice versa if you think that they peaked or whatever. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, regardless.
Here's my perspective of that. Is that apparently the ecosystem tokens, you have to buy their ecosystem tokens, and yet you can't cash them out. So that to me throws up red flags. If you have to use Bitcoin to buy their tokens, to transact or to work, to be in their ecosystem, then you should be able to cash them out. And if you can't cash them out, that to me throws up red flags. And that's probably the only thing that I have critical at this point based on what I've seen. And if that's the case, yeah, that something's wrong.
Right.
Is that in the roadmap? Do you know that, G Money? I haven't looked. I really haven't looked into this project at all. So
I'd assume that's in the roadmap, like being able to cash out has to be in there.
But you never know.
And honestly, if they didn't have that list of investors, I'd be much more concerned. But because of that investor list that they have, I think it was published on The Block maybe a couple of days ago. It makes me like a little less concerned. But obviously, they also don't know what is going on in the mind of creators. But
did BitConnect have a bunch of VCs?
I don't know.
That's a good question. It had a lot of big support after it became, well known, but I don't know if it had much for VC backing right off the bat. I actually don't know.
Because I mean, if it did, then that kind of takes that argument right out of the equation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly VCs doesn't guarantee anything at all, for sure. It depends, but I feel like comfort, right?
I do feel like BitConnect was probably like a really known Ponzi from the start, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, people knew that going in, right? Most people.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about BitCloud is looking into it, like, I think the biggest red flag for me, other than, I didn't notice the not being able to cash out your tokens thing because I didn't get into the point of, needing to buy tokens or anything yet. But it almost seems more like it's just the way that they had pre-created accounts, I think, is kind of what's thrown up the fears for everybody, which, the money from those sales, the token sales for other people's Twitter accounts goes to them if they log in and claim them at some point. The company doesn't get them. So that's not really a valid argument, but I think that kind of seems to be the biggest thing that people are crying. But I honestly, like I said, I haven't dug into it, but I'm interested to learn more. It's like you said, G Money, it's one of those things where it's either going to be revolutionary or it's going to burn in a huge fire and it's going to be a big problem. But Mitch, you and I have talked on this show many times about tokenizing your persona, right? Or tokenizing yourself as a person. And
right.
So the question is, which platform is going to be the one to do it and which one's going to do it right and which one is safe? So
the question is everything that is created today, every project, every instance of something new, it all boils down to what people are willing to find it as far as value, right? Value is only what we put into things. And if the people find value in something, then that's the only thing that's really going to give it value. I don't care how great it is. if you don't have enough people supporting you and you don't have enough people believing in you and you don't have enough people finding value in what you do, you have no value, regardless of how great your project is.
That's
So,
true.
at the end of the day, I guess that's what everything boils down to, is what people are looking for and what these projects come out with. And, that's the question. We all know from being in the space for so long that we have to be critical. We have to think critically. We have to look at things from multiple angles. We can't just look at something from face value and expect it to be true. We have to look at it from multiple angles. We have to question everything. And the day we stop questioning is the day we lose. I'm sorry. It's just the reality of things. I don't care if it's George W. Bush that puts something on Twitter. You have to, if you don't trust the guy, then you're not going to find value in it.
You don't trust George W. Bush?
Not really. I don't trust any politician. Sorry. I don't care if he's
Exactly.
a president or not.
No, fuck no. Nuclear, right? It's one of those things. That's why I probably should be kinder, but I like to make fun of George Bush because he was my president when we were like 7th grade, 8th grade, like when I was just old enough to find political humor a little bit funny. And so watching the president get up there and just
I served under him in the military. I served under him in the military. So yeah. Crazy time.
So let's get into CryptoPunks real quick, because we just talked about punks with Eric from Art Blocks, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago on our previous live stream. And we talked about how the Zombie just set a record for $7.5 million as a sale that was just totally smashed by Beeple's Christie's auction for $69 million, of course. But I remember when, I wasn't early enough to actually mint a punk for myself, claim a punk. But I remember seeing it float around Twitter, people being excited about them selling for like, $400, $500. And then I remember seeing a tweet that was like, the floor of punks is now over 2 ETH or 3 ETH or something like that. And that was when ETH was $300 or 200. It was not very much. So it's just kind of funny watching how a relatively simple project that was so evolutionary revolutionary. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Evolutionarily revolutionary. Trying to make up words as we go here, but you get my point. Take off so fast and grab such a foothold and then be replicated and imitated immediately by just about everybody in the NFT space, and yet still not see anywhere near the success that Punks has. So how did you find out about Punks? You're out here educating people on Punks. You seem to be like apparently at the very top. You've got well-known people that are taking your advice and creating Punks and that kind of stuff. How did you get into these, and why are they so fascinating to you specifically?
So my first punk buy was in December, right? I'm relatively late compared to the OGs like Snowfro, and I have him to thank, because what ended up happening was when I started going down the NFT rabbit hole in September, the way it happened was there was a CryptoKitty shard on Niftex, and somebody was shilling it on Twitter, and they were like, oh, this thing will go up 2 to 3x real quick. And I did my DD, which was none, and I bought like 20 or 30% of the shard. And I was like, all right, like let's see where this goes. And it immediately, instead of going up 2 to 3x, it immediately traded down 50%. And so at that point I was like, all right, well, I could either buy this out or sell it at a loss. And so the way Niftex works is it's a shotgun option. So a shotgun buyout. So the price that I offer to buy everybody else out, they can turn around and buy me out at that price. So you have to offer a pretty fair price. So I was like, all right, if I get my money back, I don't care. And if I do get it at this price, I actually did do DD this time. And I was like, all right, I could probably make like 5 or 10 ETH off of it. So I did that. And then while the buyout was happening, I found NiftyFi, which was a peer-to-peer lending platform. And I was like, all right, well, at the time ETH was at around $500. I was bullish on ETH. And because of that, I was bullish on NFTs. And I'll get into that in a minute. And I posted as collateral. And within 3 days, I got a loan for the 100% of what I bought. I was like, if I get 50% of what I bought, like I'll be happy. But somebody offered me $25,000. First, it was in ETH. It was 50 ETH, and I negotiated to pay them a little bit more. so that I can get in DAI. And then I turned around and I went long ETH at like 500, right? So, it ended up being a great trade in retrospect, but it was that moment when I was like, holy shit, this is going to change the world, right? Because like what ended up happening was the first day of quarantine, I bought a PlayStation. I hadn't played a video game in over 10 years. So I get PlayStation. I had every intention of playing like Madden and FIFA and nothing but sports games. But I was a little bored. Like none of my friends had the games yet. So I download Fortnite. I start playing with my friends and their nephews. And these kids are like 10, 11, 12 years old. And they're like, what first thing they ask me, what skins do you have? And I'm like, skins, like, do they give me any special powers? And they're like, no. And I'm like, all right, like, I'm not buying any skins. Like, it's stupid. I fast forward 2-3 weeks. I'm buying every semi-cool skin I can find. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I buy it. And I realized then, and this without not knowing what an NFT was, I was like, holy shit, like, kids today view digital assets the same way that I view like a t-shirt, right? Like there's no extra utility in buying a $500 t-shirt for the most part, right? It has the same exact utility as a $5 t-shirt. But the thing is like, humans value these things differently. So because of that experience at the beginning of quarantine, and then with me getting that loan being like, holy shit, like, what does this mean for capital efficiency, right? If I can own an asset and get a loan against it, pretty much pawn it for, 7 to 30 or 90 days. And then I can come back and pay that loan off. I was like, this is going to be incredible. So I start going down the NFT rabbit hole. I went with first project I started buying. And the way I was attacking the space was I was like, all right, I'm going to find a project that I like. I'm going to try to buy like a certain percentage of it with a certain dollar amount. And I'm just going to like sweep the floor. And so what I would do is like, I was, projects that I liked, I would go and I'd sweep the floor and I'd do it very quickly. I'd do it in like 15 or 20 minutes, just buy up as much as I could so that people couldn't pull their offers on me. And what ended up happening, I'd go into their discords or whatever. And, I like would go in, and again, I didn't really know anything. I just knew that I wanted to own some NFTs. And the more time I started and like, I guess my big splash was, I couldn't find I heard about art blocks, but I couldn't find the art blocks Discord. I went to the Twitter, I went to the website or whatever. And at this point I was in a couple different Discords. And so like, I literally just sat there and I minted about like 150 squiggles for like an hour. Right. And I was just sitting there, like just hitting refresh and just minting these things. And like, I went like, I minted a bunch, like, because when I started minting those, it was like the 1700s, like 1758 or something. And I was like, oh man, like, maybe these things could be important dates in history and people want to own like the squiggle for like a certain year. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to like try to go for like, I'm just going to try to buy 3 centuries worth. Right. So I literally was just hitting refresh and minting for about an hour, hour and a half. And then like, when I was done, I see like somebody hit me up on Discord and they're like, dude, like, here's the art blocks Discord. And so then like, I go in there and like, people were just, I saw like people were going nuts because they're like, who is this guy that literally just came in here and minted a ton? And that's kind of when I started really getting involved in the actual community aspect. Right. And so people were like, and obviously art blocks is run by Snowfro, and Snowfro's like, dude, like, you need a zombie. Like if you're going to be like going big into NFTs, like you need a punk, but realistically, like you need a zombie, ape, or an alien. But like, zombies at that time, zombies were about $20,000. And so then I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, like at first I'm like, I don't know. I don't want a zombie. Like, I don't want a punk because like I missed them. Like I want the next punk, right? The next crypto punks, which I think is kind of what everybody says when they come into NFTs and like, fuck punks, right? Because they're like, I want to buy the next crypto punks. And so as I spent more and more time in all these Discords, I realized that some of the most knowledgeable people and the most helpful people and the most successful people in NFTs all had punks. They were all OGs, right? Like they got it. And they were all super helpful towards me and helping me understand like the story of punks. And like, after a couple of days, I was like, all right, I get it. I'm like, I get it. Because like what I realized too is like, just the same way that I can change my skin in Fortnite for each game, my skin in crypto is my Twitter avatar my Discord avatar, and my Telegram avatar, right? So that's my skin that I show the world. So I was like, all right, like this makes sense, right? Like, because not only does it just conveys to people like who I am and what I'm about very quickly, right? Like it says what you're an OG in crypto, that like, how much do you have that you're spending, $20,000 on a fucking JPEG, right? Like it's the same thing as like owning a watch, right? Like a $5 Casio watch and $100,000 AP, they both tell you time. Neither of them are that much functionally different, but the things that they tell you about the owner are very different, right? So once I got that, I was like, oh man, like punks were an easy buy, right? Like once I totally understood them, I was like, yeah, like punks are like going to the moon, right? Because also like the way I saw it was, I saw it as an upside option on Bitcoin and ETH, where it's like, okay, if let's say, somebody makes $100 million on Bitcoin this cycle, like to them, the difference between like they will spend that extra amount of money like to show off, right? Because I always joke about this with like my friends, where it's like last cycle people would always be like, when Lambo, and I feel like at the end of this cycle, like it's going to be like when punk, when squiggle, like when insert NFT here that you like, right? And I think that we're going to see a movement towards that, right? Because it's like, if most of my interactions right now are happening on crypto Twitter and in the digital realm, right? Like me, like buying a Lamborghini to sit in my driveway when like I don't, maybe let's say 30 or 40% of my interactions with people are online, doesn't really do much for me, right? So like that was kind of like my whole thesis. So like once it made sense to me, I was like, all right, cool. And at that point I was just waiting for an ape or an alien. An alien was out of my price range at the time. So I was just like, all right, like I don't think I'll be able to get an alien, but an ape was definitely in that realm. And then like once I bought it, like I remember I wrote this tweet thread that it's pinned on my profile, and like I remember like people like were ridiculing me because at the time it was the highest notional amount paid for a punk, which was 150,000 at the time, and people were like, "Are you kidding me? You're an idiot!" Like signs of the top and all these things, and now like I feel that vindication because here we are like 2 months later, and now punks are trading. We have two punks trading at $8 million. And nobody's really batting an eye at this point, So, I think like this story was inevitable. It was going to happen, right? Like, I think punks were always going to go to mainstream. I just think I kind of helped pour like a bunch of gasoline on that to put it in a way that I think most people didn't understand it at the time.
All right. So this is a really hard question to answer. And obviously you're not going to, there's so many factors, but just, I want to hear where your mind goes with this. If let's say 50 years, let's put a 50-year cap on it. What do you think the absolute top is going to be for punks? Aliens, zombies, and apes. Give me a number for each three.
Oh man, I have no
Guess. I gotta see where your head's at.
So my question is, in 50 years time, how much is a cup of coffee, right?
There we go. That's what I really wanted to see where you would get, because obviously the biggest thing about what's happening in crypto with the dollar value going up is the value of the dollar actually going down. I think there's massive inflation happening that people just aren't seeing yet in the real world, and it's about to hit really hard.
Yeah.
Because 50 years from now, a cup of coffee might be $1 million in
Exactly.
USD. I mean, what the fuck do we know? So it changes things, and I'm really glad that you said that. And I was hoping you weren't going to just give me an actual number like everybody does. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I had that conversation with people where it's like, everyone always like, people are like, oh, Bitcoin $1 million, right? It's like, do you want Bitcoin to be $1 million? Like, what does the world look like where Bitcoin's $1 million, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's not pretty.
How much is a cup of coffee, right? Like, Bitcoin is it's like my hedge, it's my insurance policy, but like in reality, I don't know if I want Bitcoin to go to $1 million like very quickly, at least, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I to your point is like, I think it's not that the value of Bitcoin has been going up; it's that the value of every worldwide currency has been going down.
Absolutely. And I could say it's kind of like a combination at this point in time, right? The value of Bitcoin is definitely going up because there's more people learning about it and coming into the space, and there's becoming more functional value and more use and more demand for it. But I think, like you say, equally the dollar of the value is going down. And so right now we're seeing such exponential growth because we have them going in both directions. And so obviously the value of Bitcoin going up is going to stabilize. The value of the dollar crashing has to stabilize at some point, even if it stabilizes at 0 and Bitcoin stabilizes at 1 million, whatever. But it's one of those things where they're going both ways and it can't go forever. Eventually you have to stop, because value is, in a way, value is almost kind of like matter. You can't really destroy it and you can't really create it. There's kind of a certain amount of value in the world that gets kind of traded around. You could argue that it gets created with new life. You could argue that it gets created with new ideas, but ultimately it kind of doesn't. You just kind of have an amount of value in the world that just gets moved around. So
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that's the way you have to see the lens through it, right? It's like, I mean, I remember the day Jerome Powell said he was pretty much buying everything. I wired a ton of money to my Coinbase account, and that was my first Bitcoin purchase in a couple of years, right? And like that, it's like, dude, like we're buying everything. And since then, every central bank around the world has printed more money than has ever like been printed before. It's
serious.
Like the numbers are insane. So it's like that macro backdrop combined with more and more people learning about it, right? It's like one of those things. It's like there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin, right? Like you're guaranteed that by the algorithm, right? Like, before you had the faith of the US government and, every government around the world. And that's obviously been proven false at this point,
So I got a question for you. If you were on a boat and you had 3 people on that boat with only 2 parachutes, sorry, beer's working. So and you only had 2 parachutes and the boat
beer's
started
definitely
to sink.
working.
What would you do?
Okay, if I was on a boat with 3 people and we only had 2 parachutes, what would I do?
Yep.
I mean, the parachutes would be worthless because we're all on a boat.
Okay.
Right. I don't know. I guess I'd probably just try to Titanic it, right? Rose, hold on.
Rose, hold on.
I'll never let go. I'll never let go. I would just awesome. I would want to be rid of the parachutes as fast as possible, because the idea of being wrapped in anything plasticky or blankety or anything underwater is fucking horrifying.
Well, here's the thing. Parachutes, and most people don't know this, but this is an educational moment. Parachutes actually float.
Oh.
All right. So you could actually open a parachute, right? And surround yourself with it, and you would actually float.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good to know.
But would you have a heart attack from the fear of being surrounded by a parachute in the middle of the ocean?
Here's another thing too, right? And most people don't know this. You could actually take and this is a survival tool, right? If you're wearing jeans.
Oh yeah,
if you're wearing jeans in a boat, right? You could tie knots in the bottom of your pant legs, and you could fluff the jeans up into the air and put them into the water, and you will actually create yourself a life preserver for a matter of minutes. And then as that air dissipates, you do it again, and you keep doing that, and it'll create a flotation device for you.
We had to practice this in swimming lessons when I was a kid.
I've done it. Right? I've done it, right? It's military.
Your arms get tired real quick. That 6 minutes of air, it takes a lot of effort after about an hour.
It really does. It really does. But you know what? If your life is on
better
the
than
line,
sinking.
It's better than drowning, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So much better than sinking. Now, if only you could turn those jeans into a motor. Okay, so we usually ask this about you, but because you are currently an ape, let's ask this about your punk. So if you had to replace any of your punk's body parts with a mechanical object, what would it be?
I mean, let's see.
And why?
Maybe laser eyes, just because I don't know, that's pretty cool to shoot lasers out of your eyes. And
that would be sick.
Love it.
The laser-eyed punk would be the first. That would be the first. It's going to be interesting to see because it's not inconceivable that blockchains can be hacked eventually as technology catches up and we move on to other things. So on older versions of said chains, it would be possible to hack and sort of roll back the chain and then rewrite things. And so you could, in theory, you could roll it back and reissue punks and that kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see if like way down the road, some of this shit starts getting hacked and like things start getting changed. And then people like try to somehow break into wallets and collect the hacked versions. And I'm envisioning a weird future right now that most people probably have never thought about, but it's technically possible. And now I'm going to be falling down that rabbit hole and thought for the next 20
Well,
minutes.
to your point is, I was wondering the other day where it's like, what's an art heist going to look like on blockchain, right? Because now there's enough
Yeah, right.
that like I'm sure hackers are on there trying, it's like there's a big honeypot now, right?
Oh yeah, there's artists getting hacked left and right. They're
Stealing
I've
entire
seen probably
collections.
3 that I've bought art from that have posted on Twitter that they're starting over entirely, like Space Painter,
What?
Zerial RC. Was it Space Painter or was it? I think it was Space Painter had to start over, but I could be wrong. But anyway, there was 2 or 3 people that I've seen, and just in the last 6 months, they got hacked and they got all their art transferred out of their wallet, and of course, their wallet's no longer safe. All their money's out of there, and
right.
Damn.
know,
Okay,
they're-
so let's use this as an educational moment. How did that happen? Did you ever find that out?
No, but I think in most cases it was probably people either signing into a bullshit website with their private key, something like that, trying to post their art or do something like that, or claim tokens
Right.
that, that's like kind of the biggest thing and easiest way to compromise a wallet is get somebody to give you your private key.
I
And
mean,
it's not-
let's look at this from a realistic standpoint, though. Is there anything out there realistically that should ask you for your private keys? Period. What?
Well, like if you're importing your wallet into a wallet like MetaMask or something like that, or unlocking it to interact. But the thing is, if you read a little bit when you're creating things and you kind of research, you'll know this stuff. But at the same time, I mean, you can technically go and log into a DApp with your private key if you wanted to. Obviously, MetaMask exists to avoid you from having to do that directly. But if you're just coming into the space and you go on My Ether wallet and you create an ETH wallet, then you've got your private key. Know that you plug that private key maybe into MetaMask to log in, but maybe you don't understand what's happening with MetaMask and why it's protecting you from the website. So, 3 days go down the road and you see that everybody's getting massive Uniswap airdrops or Paint airdrops or whatever. So you want to go claim yours, and you go to the website where you claim it that you saw on Discord or Twitter that somebody posted. And unfortunately, that website is not the legit website, and it says log in with your private key to authorize your account and claim your tokens, or upload your art or whatever it is. I've seen scams for like known origin application forms and stuff where they ask you for your key. Just anything like that where maybe somebody wouldn't quite understand, or they think they're providing it to a reliable source. And
how could they verify that they were providing it to a reliable source or not?
You got to make sure, like with websites, you just got to make sure you're on the actual URL, make sure, but it's just a matter of due diligence. Like you just got to pay attention to where you're at. You have to just make sure that you're not entering your private key into a website, period. You should know that you should always use something like MetaMask or Trust Wallet or some sort of a DApp browser to interact with your wallet rather than logging in directly. So those are some of the key things. G Money, do you have any suggestions for security with your private key?
Yeah, so I would say that to your point is like, because I see some of them, we all get hit up with them on Discord, and like, some of them they look real, right? And the only thing that's different is like, the website, right? The URL is like, instead of .com is like .cc or something, right? Like, and that's one thing to make sure that, and I always tell my friends, I'm like, always make sure you're going into like the right website, even if like you Google search it, right? Because somebody could do a paid ad to become the first result. So that's definitely something that I would suggest. And then obviously try to use a hardware wallet as much as possible, right? And keep as little as possible on a hot wallet.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a hard thing to do kind of in the NFT world, because your one wallet is like your identification almost.
Yep.
Which makes it really, it's kind of like a weird catch-22 situation, right? Like obviously the ultimate situation would be to use multiple wallets and never reuse the same thing and have everything be separate. So if you got compromised on one wallet, so what? You're out $50 worth of Ethereum and one minted NFT, and all the rest is still scattered across your other ones. And now it's possible that maybe something exists to abstract that to where you log into one account that sort of like combines multiple wallets. Maybe that exists. Maybe it will exist in the future. I don't know. But it's one of those things where the best situation is extremely inconvenient and almost useless for the actual functional side of it. So it makes it tricky.
I'd like to go back, if I may, and touch on the banking system as far as holding our crypto. you had asked that question and, asked if we would allow banks to use our cryptocurrency or to hold our cryptocurrency. And I think my answer to that is myself, absolutely not. I won't even use Robinhood or any other kind of platform other than maybe Celsius Network, to where I can actually earn interest and, get money back for holding my crypto. But outside of that, to go into the traditional banking system, which I think 90% of us that have been in crypto since 2018, 2019, and before, I think the majority of us are trying to get away from the traditional banking system. So I would not utilize that. But there are some people that need a third party to hold their crypto. There are some people that need a third party to control their private keys because they don't have the responsibility, the technology, or the know-how to do so. So I think in some applications, it might behoove a newbie or a new person coming into the space. It might behoove them to either learn how to control and keep hold of their private keys, or let the banking system do it. So I think it leaves a lot to the user as far as a judgment call on their part. What do you guys think?
I totally agree with you, but I think the major key, right, is that we're giving users a choice, right? Which is
for sure.
So it's like, if you choose to have somebody take custody, then that's your choice. Like right now, we have no choice, right? Like if the banking system cuts you off, you're cut off. Like there's no way you can like go. And like, I think that's like the real interesting thing that amazes me about DeFi was I feel like DeFi was born out of the fact that you had all these crypto millionaires in like the 2017 cycle that couldn't buy real world assets because banks would just be like, nah, like we're not going to give you a loan for that, even though you have whatever, $20 million in crypto. Like, and they're like, all right, well, fuck you guys. We're just build our own financial system. And that's what brings us to where we are today, where, I remember the first time I used Aave, I was like, holy shit, like this is amazing. Like
you hit the nail on the head when you said that banks can just say, no, you can have $2 million, $1 million, $500,000 worth of cryptocurrency in a banking situation, and Big Daddy government comes in and freezes your account, or the banking system freezes your account, right? For no apparent reason, just because.
Yep.
And that is not something I'm willing to take a chance on. If I hold my cryptocurrency in my wallets, I know that I have full control over it. So, but that's me, right? We've learned that responsibility. And here's the thing that people need to understand, because I've explained to people about their private keys. I've explained to them how to set up wallets. And they're like, the look on their face, the shock and the surprise about, oh my God, if I lose these, I lose all my money. Hello, it's called responsibility. Take responsibility for you.
If you drop your nickel on the ground, did you lose your fucking nickel?
Right. Don't rely on somebody else to be responsible for your money. You need to be responsible for you and for what you hold. And when you explain it to them like that, and I say, look at it like this: take your private keys and do with it the same thing you would do with a safe deposit box key. You would put it in a safe, or you would store it someplace that was safe, that you knew where it was at all times. Same thing with your keys. But no, it's just, there are some people that don't want that responsibility, and that's okay. And like you said, you hit it also very well by saying we give people a choice, and people actually have a choice now. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
I made some choices today.
What was your first one you made? Was that the one to get out of bed and put one leg in at a time, or did you?
No,
decide to
I didn't.
Put both legs
I made several choices before I got out of bed today, even in fact. So no, I bought some tweets. I received a bunch of Pokemon cards in the mail that reflected a previous choice that was made.
Okay.
But I bought some tweets today. I sold a tweet yesterday, which was exciting. Well, we're talking about NFTs.
You sold a tweet?
Yeah, for $30. I posted a tweet about falling down the buying tweets rabbit hole, and somebody bought my tweet about posting a tweet about falling down the buying tweets rabbit hole.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah. I bought a tweet about Star Wars. I bought poorly drawn bird tweets. It's like a little bird on a pink sticky
How
note.
can we? Okay, so
I
how can
fucking
we
paid, like,
monopolize on
I
this
don't
with
even
the
know how much I
campfire?
paid for that. I paid like 40
How can
bucks
we
for that.
monopolize on that with a campfire? Let's think about that for a minute.
No, dude, this is what I'm talking about. Remember how we talked about the merch store? We've
Yeah.
got
Oh yeah.
we talked
still
with
gotta
Eric.
come
We've
back
already
to
got some
that.
shit planned with Snowfurl,
We still
which
gotta
is
come
going to be
back to that.
sick. Because
Oh
can't
my
you wait
God.
for Art Blocks merch? What did
Uh-huh.
I say that? And
Shut up and take my money. Where do I
Shut up
send
and
it?
take
That's all
my-
I gotta ask. Where do I send it? Give me an address.
but there's going to be some art blocks, and there's going to be some scent .co involved with the future of the Crypto Campfire merch store. So just keep an
See,
eye out for
all
that.
these things he like keeps in his little head, well, his big head. He keeps
It's
in
really
there.
big. It weighs like 15 pounds.
It's dude, you probably got like 5 terabytes of RAM in that son of a bitch. Seriously, it's just accessing it that's a pain in the ass.
Accessing it is extremely difficult. I will tell you that much.
Right?
I will tell you
Especially
that
since
much.
everything's held in a little box.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God, G Money, brother, this has been an amazing podcast. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope you had fun.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on. I had a blast.
Hell yeah. And for all our listeners, thank you guys, J-Mac, Benza, Paulie P, freaking who else is on here? Charlie G, my brother, Litecoin Lisa, all you guys,
I
thank
think
you
even
so
Benza
much
dropped in for a
supporting us.
minute.
What's that?
Benza even dropped in the middle of his workday over in
I know,
Australia.
right? It's so awesome. And then another person called Recon. Thank you guys all for joining the chat group tonight. Spread the word. Let's see if we can get some more listeners on next Thursday. 8:15 ish, same time as today. I think we've succumbed to the fact that works well for us. So yeah.
No, there's 6 o'clock. We'll just tell you guys 6:15.
Or
Top
8
secret.
EST, right? 8:15 EST. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining. G Money, thank you for being on the podcast tonight. Guys, have yourselves a great one.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.
Take it easy.
All right.
Peace.